The moment you enter an argument, you have already lost. Why? Because you accepted their rules, their arena, and their reality. True psychological power isn't about raising your voice, throwing facts, or proving yourself right. It's about quietly rewriting the boundary of the conversation. In this masterclass, you will learn absolute frame control, the subtle, devastating art of bending any interaction to your will without ever arguing back. Every human interaction operates under an underlying frame, the implicit psychological context, assumptions, and boundaries that dictate who holds the high ground. When an individual initiates an argument, they establish a frame designed to force you onto the defensive. The fundamental mistake most people make is engaging directly within that hostile perimeter. The moment you begin justifying your actions, defending your motives, or arguing against their specific facts, you have quietly accepted their rules and surrendered authority. Frame control is the art of recognizing this invisible boundary and refusing to step inside it. Power does not belong to the person with the loudest voice or the most logical rebuttal. It belongs to the person who dictates the terms of the conversation itself. By recognizing that the frame precedes the content, you realize that winning is not about debating points. It is about dictating the very reality in which the interaction takes place. Perspective hijacking is the tactical mechanism used to dismantle an opponent's frame without directly opposing it. Direct contradiction creates resistance, whereas reframing subtly redirects the trajectory of the conversation. When someone attacks you with an accusation or a loaded premise, you do not hit back. Instead, you change the meaning of their statement. You take their core argument, strip it of its hostile emotional charge, and redefine it to serve your objective. For instance, if an opponent labels your calculated deliberation as hesitation, you immediately reframe it as uncompromising precision. You are not denying their observation, you are altering the lens through which it is viewed. By controlling the definitions and labels within an interaction, you force the opponent to react to your new narrative. Perspective hijacking effectively turns their aggressive momentum against them, leaving them swinging at shadows while you maintain complete narrative dominance. In verbal confrontations, noise is often mistaken for strength, yet silence remains the ultimate weapon of high-status posture. The tactical pause is a calculated, deliberate delay implemented immediately after an opponent delivers an aggressive pitch or provocative accusation. Most individuals react instantly out of emotional panic, filling the air with hasty explanations. By withholding your immediate response, you create an unbearable psychological vacuum. The aggressor expects a defensive reaction. When met with unyielding stillness and steady eye contact, their subconscious panics. They begin to second-guess their own statement, wondering if they overstepped or exposed a vulnerability. In the absence of your defense, their own words echo in the room, forcing them to fill the awkward space, often by qualifying, softening, or walking back their initial stance. Silence disrupts their rhythm, breaks their emotional momentum, and silently establishes that you are immune to their verbal pressure. Aggressive manipulators frequently use emotional anchors, loaded words, personal insults, or artificial urgency to bait you into an emotional reaction. An emotional reaction is a surrender of frame control, as it signals that the opponent has successfully influenced your internal state. Disarming these anchors requires absolute stoic detachment. Instead of absorbing the bait or matching their intensity, you observe their emotional display as an external phenomenon rather than a personal threat. Acknowledge the statement with flat, indifferent neutrality, using minimalist responses like, "That is an interesting perspective," or "You seem remarkably invested in that narrative." By treating their high-stakes provocation with cool nonchalance, you strip their words of toxic power. The emotional energy they expended yields zero leverage, draining their momentum. When you remain a mirror instead of a sponge, emotional traps crumble, exposing the weakness of the attacker while highlighting your unshakable composure. Meta-questioning is the surgical technique of stepping outside the debate to analyze and question the underlying motive, logic, or structure of the opponent's argument itself. Amateur debaters fall into the trap of answering every loaded inquiry pitched at them. Elite strategists focus on why the question was framed that way in the first place. When confronted with a trap or a manipulative statement, you do not defend yourself or provide an answer. Instead, you turn the psychological spotlight directly back onto the interrogator by asking a meta question that forces them to justify their premise. By asking targeted questions such as, what specific outcome are you hoping to achieve by framing it this way? Or, what makes you assume that is the only valid metric here? You immediately shift the heavy burden of proof back onto the aggressor. You have effectively inverted the power dynamic. You are no longer the party being interrogated or put on trial. You are now the observer evaluating their intent and logic. Meta-questioning dismantles aggressive posturing because it exposes the hidden machinery behind their words, forcing them to expend energy defending themselves while you retain complete frame control. Words account for only a small fraction of true psychological dominance. The genuine foundation of frame control is built upon nonverbal gravity. Sovereign gravity is the physical embodiment of unshakable presence, a state where your physiology communicates total high-status authority before you even articulate a single syllable. Most people constantly betray their internal anxiety through subtle micro-behaviors. Rapid blinking, restless fidgeting, tilting the head to signal submissiveness, or accelerating their vocal pace out of a desperate fear of being interrupted. Sovereign gravity demands the absolute opposite. To cultivate this level of presence, every physical movement must become slow, deliberate, and controlled. Lower your vocal pitch, adopt a measured rhythm of speech, and comfortably embrace silent pauses without rushing to fill the room with noise. Maintain steady, unblinking eye contact that reflects complete internal calm rather than hostility or eagerness. Your posture should remain expansive yet relaxed, occupying physical space effortlessly without seeking validation. When confronted with sudden aggression or unexpected pressure, refrain from defensive flinches, rapid nodding, or anxious body language. Instead, hold your physical posture steady, absorbing their energy like an immovable mountain. This profound, nonverbal stillness sends an unmistakable signal to the subconscious mind of the opponent. You cannot be provoked, panicked, or coerced. Your internal reality is entirely self-governed. When your physical presence exudes this degree of absolute self-possession, you create an invisible aura of authority. In any high-stakes interaction, the individual who displays the greatest physical stillness and the lowest emotional reactivity naturally anchors the dominant frame.